Hey everyone, it's Simone and Bella, Crystal, and I are here with you for another soul conversation. We are so excited to talk to the 10 tonight and see what it has to say. And Bella, why don't you? It's been a while since we have gone live with a soul conversation. Why don't you tell everyone about what happens and how they can participate?
Yes, we are going to ask questions to the 10, which is the natural in the 64 doors. And it's the gate of naturalness in human design. And is also naturalness, I guess. Yeah, naturalness and being in the gene keys. So Simone is going to use her skills to bring through from this hexagram what the highest essence is. And then we get to ask questions. If you are on live, you get to ask your questions in the chat and we'll bring them up and have you interact with us. That's always Simone's preferred way of actually having an interaction around the archetypes.
All right. Well, let's see what the 10 has to say. And if you are joining us, we love your questions. What we have learned over time is great questions make for great wisdom to come through. So we hope you'll co-create with us. All right. Let's see. I would like to communicate with the soul of the 10 Gene Key Gate by Ching, for the purpose of wisdom, for healing, for the highest good and the highest vibration. Will you communicate with us? So the first thing I saw was the words Mad Hatter. And I saw this kind of wall like made with Lego bricks, and they all just started kind of flying out. And now the 10 is laughing, and he is inviting us. He says, "Come on, let's go. Let's go on a journey." And he's very happy and joyful for this. And there's a bit of, as we were walking, there's a bit of what I imagine would be like walking in nature, having a conversation with someone that is just so easy. Everything about what I'm experiencing in my body is really, really easy. And he says, but what I want you to do is I want you to go into your heart of hearts. And he kind of turns around and he goes into his heart. And I feel like he's inviting us. It's an invitation for us to go into our hearts. And so it's almost like we're starting again and starting from our heart. And he says, now what do you feel as we begin, as we are here together? He doesn't really want us to be moving. He just wants us to be in the stillness as we are here. And I'm saying to him, what I feel is complete presence. And he's just kind of nodding, and I'm asking him what he feels. And he says, I feel all of it. I feel all of you. I feel all of everyone who is here with you. I feel the totality of the whole experience. And he notices that, some of it is super high vibration and some of it is lower vibration. And he's not editing out any of it, that he is willing to be present with us with all of it. And that that's kind of the truth of it, that the whole bandwidth is included in our experience. And, and it's natural for us to have highs and lows, to be he flashed me the word constricted as well as infinite, and that we have this whole range of experience that is multitudinous, he says, and that it's unnatural to reject it. When we are in our naturalness, he says, we don't reject any of it. We just receive it all. We are aware of it all. We acknowledge it all in our naturalness. And he's showing me a little process. He said, I want you to go into your heart. And I went into my heart, and then he asked me what I felt, and I felt him in my heart. Like I received him in my heart. And then he was like, what do you want to, what do you want to do with me when I'm in your heart? And I'm just saying, I want to be present with you and learn from you and share with you. And he says, well, that's not completely true. Your intention wasn't to share with me. Your intention was to receive from me. And that's true. I hadn't even thought of sharing the truth of my heart with him. And he goes, you see, this is the naturalness. He says that you want to receive from me, and I want to receive from you. And so how, he says, how do we negotiate that? And I'm saying, well, if I'm wholehearted and you're wholehearted, we can connect in that bandwidth. And he goes, that's correct. But when you have just looked at what you want and you haven't looked at what the person, or received what the person you're in relationship wants, it's not completely natural. There's not just you in the equation. You just plunk yourself down into my Garden of Eden, my perfection, and you wanted something. And if you had asked me what I wanted at the beginning of this interlude, that I would have received you, what I would have said to you is, if you had started with a different question, was, I receive you in my garden, in all my naturalness, and I would like for you to share your heart with me. And I'm just saying, I can do that. And he's like, what is the apple that you would like to share from your heart? And I'm being really honest. Like, I haven't spent a whole lot of time with the 10. And so I would really like to know more about you, 10. And I'd like to truly understand you at the cellular level. What's in my heart is, I would really like to understand you in my cells in a way that you're unforgettable. And he says, you're talking about oneness. You're talking about literally inseparability. And I'm saying, yeah, that sounds delightful to me. And he says, oh, okay, let's go there. Let's do this. Because if I'm inseparable from you, you're inseparable to me. And he says, do you realize that? And I go, well, now that you put it that way, yes. And then he says, and then you're inseparable and I'm inseparable from the whole quantum field. And I'm kind of getting his point, And he says, do you still want to go? And I'm willing. Yes, I do want to be with him at the level of cellular consciousness, DNA consciousness. And he says, what does it feel like? And I'm saying to him that what I'm experiencing is openness. And he says, ah. And he says, what do you mean by openness? And I'm saying to him, it's like breath. It's like the tide. It's the giving and receiving in such a way. And, like breath is, we don't, in its naturalness, it just occurs. I mean, certainly we can choose to exhale and inhale in a particular way, but the basics of breath happen. And that's what it feels like to me. That openness feels like breath, or the water flowing in and out with the tide. And he says, notice how there's no, in its naturalness, there's no restriction. There's no siphoning off of the water or limiting the breath. It simply happens. And there's what he showed me was there was a naturalness to the flow, to the rise and to the fall, to the in and to the out. And he's asking, where do you think that flow can take you? And I'm saying, I never thought about that. Where can the breath take me? Where can the tide, the flow of the tide take me? And when I go into my own body is into myself. It can take me more into myself. And he says, that's it exactly. And then as I'm going into myself, I'm in the, in a sense, fractal consciousness of my own soul. And he says, and what do you feel there? And what I'm saying to him is that I feel the interconnectedness and the interrelatedness of everything and everyone. And he's encouraging me to go deep, to go deep into myself. And as I go deep into myself, I feel like I'm in the heart of Gaia. And he says, when you get to the heart of Gaia, where are you? And I'm immediately in the universe. Like I'm both in the heart of Gaia and in the universe all simultaneously. It's as if it's a portal between the two. And then he said, well, now where do you want to go? And I said, back into my heart. And he's like, exactly. And that's the breath. And now he's asking me, would you like to play with all these beautiful people who have joined you? And I'm saying, absolutely. So, Bella, I'm going to invite you back in. And there she is. Hey there.
Hi, I was thrown out and my internet is apparently unstable. So if I go black again, it's because of that.
No worries. So he's like, share with her with Evan. So the 10 was really interesting. He actually spoke to me about intention and, why were we in this conversation? And, I said to him that, I wanted to receive him. I wanted to learn from him. And he said, but you didn't ask me what my intention was at the beginning. And I was like, oh, okay. And so, he wanted to be with me in wholeheartedness, in this relationship of wholeheartedness. And then he, we talked about what that felt like. And for me, it felt like breath, like the naturalness of breath or the tide. And then he asked me where that flowed. And when I really paid attention, it took me into my body. It was like I was in the fractal of myself, and he encouraged me to go deeper. and then I felt like I got to the heart of Gaia, and immediately I was also in the universe. And we experienced that. And then he said, now where do you want to go? And I said, into my heart. And he loved that, to bring it back into the heart. And then he invited everyone. He said, let's play with these beautiful people who have joined us. So I invited you back into the conversation. So, yeah.
Yeah, I feel it's a cool question because we were doing this during the whole year in the transit, right? So we were really intention was to feel into that energy of the transit, and maybe people that had their birthday or has it in their activation sequence. A lot of these people were the people who could come in with questions, and now suddenly we are doing these two transits that were the last 2 weeks of the year. So the 10 is not in transit. So I think it's kind of fun to have the question, kind of what's your intention now? You're way off time, And the other thing I feel is really interesting is that, we say the ego center, we call it ego center, heart center, will center. And often I don't call it heart center because I think it's a little bit confusing, because for me, the G is the heart. The G is the yellow center, the diamond of the self. So it's about identity, it's about direction, and it's also about love. So for me, that kind of feels like the heart, the very center of the chart. And sometimes, often I say, if somebody says the heart center for the ego, that is the heart muscle, that kind of willpower that's going to continue. It's the heart muscle that wants to continue kind of, how do you say, like beating. And if there is a person or a bear that meets another bear in the forest, like you kind of don't think, oh, am I worthy enough, or what's my, like, you kind of just fight because that heart muscle wants to continue beating. And what I really feel with the G center, where the 10 is, this is the love of the self. So of course it's going to want to go to the heart. Of course it's going to want to go to the G center. It's what I feel like it's pointing us back from every other center, from everywhere we are in the chart. It's kind of really just pointing us back to that G center, to that diamond of self. And like it's so much about self-love. It's like, how do you behave on an everyday basis in order to feel good, in order to feel, kind of create more of whatever is reflected to you that come back as self-love. And maybe we just have to be natural and follow in every moment what feels natural in order to have that reflected back to us. Maybe it is that simple, and maybe that's the question for the 10, on an everyday basis, how to tune into this energy and have it help us to come back to that self, that direction, that love that we have in this very center of our hearts.
And he says that's it. And then when we're in relationship, to be honest, to be transparent about why we're in that relationship, and what we want, what our come from is, what our motivation is. And when we can be honest with the other about why we're showing up with them, we're really choosing to be in the heart of ourselves and to be honest with ourselves, and that transparency of consciousness. He says, that's why I asked you what you wanted. That's, you were choosing to be in relationship with me, and I wanted to be in the naturalness of it with you. He's saying, I didn't want you following me around and listening and just taking in. That's not fulfilling to me. That what's fulfilling is that if you want a relationship with me, to be in relationship with me, to claim what you want. He said, you could have said anything to me. Anything. And I would have received that from you. Because what I was asking you about is the truth of who you are in relationship with me. And he says, that's what I really want from you, is the transparency of consciousness, the truth. Why do you want to be with me, play with me, engage with me? Why do you want to activate me in your cells?
Simone, this is so interesting. It made me think of a conversation I had this week about the feminine, the masculine, and how sometimes in the mature state in relationships, I feel it creates problems. And I have a lot of women that, come and it's about intimacy usually, but intimacy and relationships always go hand in hand, right? And the women say like, well, I told him from the beginning what I need. Like, this is what I need. And it's like, and I feel many times it's so over focused. Like, I think that I'm going to thrive in relationships because now I know to ask what I need. And then I have men say, I told her to mute you in the meantime. Yeah, just mute maybe because I hear a little bit of a little bit of like so men come to me and say, well, I told her in the beginning about when we were dating or what I want. I told her I want this, I don't want. I was really clear. So women come and say, this is what I need. And men says, this is what I want. This is what I don't want. And actually, they come to me because it's apparently not working. It doesn't, just stating what you want or what you need, it's not really the thing. And I feel like the 10 is speaking to that. When you bring it back to intent, that really kind of clicks for me. And that goes into also the open ego center and the open head and ajna, because open ajna never really know what they want. They're not certain. They can shift all the time. And then the emotional wave, no, actually, because it goes through the waves. And the open ego is not here to promise anything, here to kind of life as it is, which is much about the 10 and the natural. So to come to a relationship with my intention here in this co-creation with you is to deepen the way we know each other. My intention is to date you, see you once a week. My intention in this relationship is to honor myself with not like kind of completely outsourcing my life to you. Instead of saying, I need this, like, my intention here is to respect myself in this way. So if we can come to a relationship with, or even if it's just a relationship, I say, is from the moment we start knowing somebody. It doesn't have to be an official, formal relationship. If we can come with that intention, then it's so valuable. But to not be so fixed about, what went wrong in other relationship was that I didn't get what I need, or that I told her what I wanted, but then she made something else of it. No, how to actually come back into something that is more fluid, that is an intention, and not make us be sure about something, because maybe this relationship is completely different. But if we think that it's just the same as what we lived before and we need to state these things, then we are kind of expecting more of the same that is not in a high frequency. So I would love to speak it with a 10 about this, or have any input.
Oh, he's loving this. And he's taking us to intention, he says, because it is a snapshot of what's in your heart in the moment. If you can truly articulate what your intention is, you've gone into your heart and you know. And if you are wholehearted in that, and transparent in that, and fearless in that, and courageous in that, and you can articulate that, he says, just being in the presence of it, you could literally be breathing with someone else and they would have this awareness, because he's saying that your intention is always there and the other person will always have some kind of awareness of it. But you're owning it is what's so important. And he says that when you show up wholehearted like this and fearless in this way, and you are taking responsibility for your intention, he says this is when the opportunity for expansion occurs, because he's taking one of your examples that you just talked about, like the man who says, this is what I want and this is what I don't want. And that doesn't include the intention of, this is what I would like to create with you. Because if that person can go into, this is what I would like to create with you, and this is why I would like to create with you, then they can get out of the conditioning. Because when you start to own your intention, you can start to become aware of, well, why is that my intention? Where did that spring from within me? You can have a conversation with the other person about, if I said to you, my intention today is this, just like when the 10 asked me what my intention was, he could have come back and said, well, that's interesting. Why is that your intention? Why is that what you want? And now we're in a relationship where exploration is possible. We're not in a relationship where I'm just hitting repeat, repeat of every other relationship I've ever had that is not this one. It doesn't include you. He says it's so important because really the honesty, he says you humans think that honesty is about being honest with someone else, but really the honesty is about being honest with yourself about what your come from is and why you want to be in this arc. He calls it an arc in this relationship, and what it is you hope to reveal. And he took me to like a potato field where he's, there's, the potatoes are underground and you pick them, I think, when there's a bloom up above ground. The bloom is the indicator of the potato below. And he's like, what's blooming? Where's the, and he's using the metaphor of like pulling the potato out before the bloom, when there's not the bloom yet. And I'm not quite sure. He says, stay with me. And I'm like, okay, I'm in a potato field with him. He's like, what do you want to eat? And he's looking around at this whole big field of potatoes, that they're all underground. You don't really even see the potato. And he's like, what do you want to eat? And I'm like, I don't know. And he goes, that's my point. What do you want to take in? That's what he's in a sense asking us, right? What do you want to take in? And I said, I don't know. And he goes, well, then how do you know which potato you're going to pull, right? If you don't know what you want, how do you enter the relationship or the conversation or the engagement? He goes, now think about what you really want to take in. And the first word that came to me was beauty. And he says, okay, now look around this field. And I'm looking around the field and he goes, where's the beauty? And I know exactly where it is. Like I know which row, I know how far down. He goes, exactly. Because when I said beauty, suddenly that's infused in my field and I can just go right to the place in the field where it's going to be the most beautiful experience. He says, now try something else. And I'm like, okay. The word desire popped up. So I said, okay, I want to have the experience or take in desire. And he says, okay, first go into yourself and where is it? And I can find it in my own body. He goes, okay, now use that as a homing device. Look from that place in your body. So I'm looking from that place in my body, and it's more of an area instead of like a specific point. It's kind of like over there. And so he's saying, okay, go over there. So I'm moving my energy over to there. He goes, okay, now look from that place in your body, and it's still kind of a nebulous area. He says, okay, now bring that energy up into your heart. So I'm bringing that energy of desire up into my heart. And he says, now look from your heart. And when I look from my heart, I see it all over the field. It's not quite right there, but I see specific spots all over the field. And he goes, now that's good. Now look from your heart with your desire, and which one of these opportunities do you want? I see the exact one. He goes, okay, now go over there. So I'm taking my energy over there. And when I get over there, it's almost like immediately one with me. And I'm interested in this. I mean, this is fascinating to me that he's teaching us how. Like he's given us options. Like this is really pragmatic. And if you know me, I love the pragmatics of soul being embodied. And I want to ask him what his intention was in teaching us this. And he's like, your soul is embodied, whether you recognize it or not. Whether you are wholehearted in that or not. It's just a matter of whether it feels kind of natural. Does it feel natural to embody your soul? And I'm saying, yes, for me, it does feel natural now. I've worked at it. He goes, that's right. And he says, so imagine being in this field if you have not done the work to, experience the soul and embodied. And he says, just imagine if you hadn't done the work to embody your soul. When you looked around this field, what would you feel? And I said, I wouldn't even know where to begin. And he says, that's it exactly. It would just be kind of a random digging up of potatoes. So he says, I'm encouraging and nurturing, hopefully, in each of you, this desire to experience the soul embodied in a way which informs your intent. It almost exponentializes your intention and your awareness of the intention. He says, now look across this field. He says, tell me what you see. And I said, oh, I see so much of myself. And so many things that are important to me, I actually just see them. And he says, look at the clarity when you look across this field with your soul embodied. And it's true. I mean, instead of looking across it and being completely overwhelmed, like, where would I go? Where's I know exactly where I'd go, where I'm drawn to. And now he's bringing other people into the potato field. And so there are people, just imagine there's an open field and people are milling around. And he says, what do you see? And I am saying to him, I'm seeing a lot of people who don't even know why they're here. I'm seeing people who are very precise. I'm seeing the whole range of society in this field. And he says, and where do you want to go in this field? And I said, I still want to go with what resonates within me. He says, now go to a place. So I'm going over to a place and there's some people there. And he goes, I just want you to stand here for a minute. And he goes, what do you notice? And I'm saying, well, I'm noticing that one of the people there is completely clear and the other person is not clear. And he says, and who do you want to engage with? And I said, well, there's a part of me that wants to engage with both of them. And he goes, do you know why that is? And I said, well, I think it's because it's my 4 line, that wants to, be in relationship with everyone. And he says, he's just kind of nodding his head. He's paying attention. And he goes, and what else? I said, well, my 6th line is here to bring in what's not here yet. And he goes, and so how do you want to approach this? And I said, well, I just got to be with them, because if they don't invite me, they're not going to be able to hear me. And he goes, exactly. So while you are engaging with the energy for yourself, you can just be in your naturalness with them, and you can see who sticks around and invites you. And as we're having this conversation, the person who was kind of confused, who was just milling about the area, just on its own is just kind of floating off, moving away. And the being who was, standing there the whole time is starting to engage with me in a conversation. And he asked me, what are you doing here? And he goes, now do you see your invitation? The 10 says, now do you see your invitation? And I'm saying, yes. So I feel like he just showed me an example as a 4-6 projector of what that might look like. And he says, what if you were a 1-3 generator? I'm hypothesizing that I would want to research and go in depth and have some fun along the way. That's what my hypothesis is. But he says, well, then my point is that use your profile to engage with this field. Don't be in the naturalness of her. He points to me being, for the people who are here with us, be in the naturalness of you. And where does your energy take you, and why? What's that motivation? And what do you do when you get there? And he says, that's wholeheartedness. He says, that's embodying the truth of who you are wholeheartedly, and simultaneously allowing your soul to be a part of that engagement. Jacqueline, my eyes kind of go to the chat. Jacqueline says, interesting, I am a manifesting generator 1-3. And I'm like, Jacqueline, did you just manifest that example? Good job. Good job. Bella?
I was feeling in about the self-obsession in the shadow a little while, and I feel like usually when when you listen to what comes through, it doesn't really take you to the shadow frequency. You kind of get solutions. I do feel like what I was saying before about this is what I need, this is what I want, has to do with that self-obsession. And maybe a little bit with a 1-3 that doesn't want to make the same mix, that want to be in a win-win, but it's not completely ready to surrender into their naturalness. And there is something, and I have open head and ashna, and I'm a sacral authority. There is something that rings a little bit false to me about always knowing what I want. Like I can always have an intention, but I don't have a defined head and ashna. I'm often like, I can feel a direction, I can feel my intention. Always, I don't know, maybe because we're in the 30 right now, there is a lot of like that, what do you desire? Do you have the fuel for desire? But there is something for me here where, I'm not sure that always knowing what I want is even something that I'm longing for. Like I kind of like this element in life where I'm like pulled in different directions. I don't always know exactly. I have an anticipation, I have an intent, but I don't always know, I'm going to go to the potato field and I want this or that. I don't even know if I always want beauty. In my naturalness, I actually quite a lot like the ugliness of this too. It's like, oh, wow. Because for me, the natural thing is that everything isn't nice. Everything isn't beautiful. Like there is all these elements where I almost don't want to live life. It would feel like a horse that has this, if I always know what I want. So I feel myself a little bit like wondering what's really there. What is it? What's there? Because that's what I'm feeling now.
Yeah, let's see what the 10 says. So he says, my example provoked you. And he says that intentional wholeheartedness. He's showing me how energetically, he's showing me a picture. And what the picture looks like is this great bowl. And when he said the words intention and wholeheartedness, I started to see energy kind of swirling in this bowl, kind of building up, swirling together. And he says, when you're in the experience of wholehearted intention, there is a desire. There is he says you can phrase it how you want. And it might be transpersonal, it might be personal, but you have in your intention, there's a reason why you have that intention. There's a motivation. And it could be a conditioned response or, motivation. It could be a natural motivation. And he says, you're not wrong to question. He says, that's the naturalness of you. That's your wholehearted showing up here. He says, even though I used an example for this one, and he points at me, he says, that example doesn't exclude you. It may provoke you, but then again, that would be you being in the naturalness of you in this experience, in this relationship of desiring an experience that's both personal and transpersonal. And he says that he can give you that experience if that's what your intention is. And it's like he takes me out of the potato field a bit, and there's kind of this rainbow-like energy, this arc of energy. And then he kind of looked at you, Bella, and he was like, "Where would you like to proceed?" And it's almost like he has this kind of knowing that you're going to uh, go on this journey that um, spans, um, goes over. And I feel like when my energy is in that energy of this kind of bridge like energy, that when you're on this bridge, he says you can see the truth of it all. And he says that would be more in line with your intention to see, experience, know the truth.
Yeah,
of it all.
my life's work is the second G, so it's about embracing everything and kind of not having expectations, but just surrendering and embracing whatever comes. I have open head and ashna, so for an open ego center. So I don't have consistent willpower. So for me, kind of going around saying I want this or I want that, it's more like, for me, it's more about, of course, the second G is about receiving. It's a constant receiving of life. And then there's always a tracking, because I'm a 4-6, so 6 is still tracking failure and trial and error. So it be also continuous adjustment. Okay, this didn't feel like self-love. Okay, let me come back into center. But not so. That's for me a quite masculine way of saying, okay, this is what I want, or a defined Harinashna. This is exactly the way that I process life, I see life. But for me, it feels as a journey that I'm welcoming in every moment. And as I feel slightly like my body's unease, my vocation, my core wound, like it's a continuous, like you can, it's a continuous leaning into the center. And my body tells me, you will see, I listen, and I'm like really listening. My body is gonna say yes. I don't say that's what I want to hear with my ajna. It's much more my body, sacral generator, leaning in. So, yeah, and
but
in no way
there's
I'm
a
saying
truth there. There's a truth there, he says. There's a truth of what you want. It's just a different vibration. But there, when you expressed it, he goes, "That's what you want." You were talking. He goes, "That's what she wants. That's what she wants." That's, you may not want an iPhone or this or that, but what you want is for the experience to be where you lean in. He says there are just there you want something in that. Your intention is that. It may be
and
different.
I feel like, yeah, and that this is in a way kind of, it's important to take this conversation from the gift frequency, because it could be taken from the low frequency, and then it's going to be women that go into relationship, I need this or I need that, or man saying I want this, I want that kind of keeps you in the shadow frequency. So it's important here to listen to the intention and to listen to something that look different. If you have open head and ashna, if you're a 1-3 manifesting generator, like it's going to look different depending on your design. It's like you're moving different in the world depending on your, we know that already with all type, like going to look different. And that's what I feel somehow the 10 is saying to me in a funny way. Your naturalness is your natural, and it's super unique. Here we have the love of the self, and yourself going to be very different from somebody else's self. Probably the 10 is going to ask each person very different questions.
Indeed. Mm-hmm. Indeed. But he says in all of what you said, there was an intention and there was a desire.
Yeah, and for me, not a fixed this where I want that. I can tell you about my vision. I can tell you about my direction, but I'm a 4-6, so it's not really. It's kind of vast, right? Mm-hmm. So that's why it was important for me to kind of, in a way, display another way of that, in a way, the third is the desire that I guess that we are. What do you want to experience?
Yeah, and he showed, the shamanic part of my work is when I get a picture from my own life. And so this is the picture. So he's showing me a vision board that I created. And it was kind of like the last time I did a vision boarding, because I had been doing this with a dear, dear friend of mine. And we even started doing workshops with people where we would, at the beginning of the year, do this vision boarding. And every year I would have this one image that was an image that I felt like captured, I want to be my highest vibration. That's what I wanted. And so I would have this one image, and I would be doing it with this friend of mine who I adore, and her board would be full of all these different images. And all I could do was put, the image that captured what I wanted, which was to be my highest vibration. And she had all of these desires and wants, and like I would look at my little vision board, her vision board, and they were so different, right? And every now and then I would say to her, I wish I could, I wish I had that desire to manifest all these things that you do. But I know the truth of this. I know that this is what I truly desire, is to be my highest vibration in every moment. And we've laughed about it. And that's what the 10 brings, to this conversation, is that, when I receive myself, it's not that I want a vision board with 100 things on it or 5 things on it. I just want the one thing, to be my highest vibration. And that's an underlying intention for, what I choose in my world, right? And when I can be honest with that with people, then they know where I'm coming from. He says that your desire is underneath that desire, that intention is underneath every choice you make, every decision you make, every relationship you go into. And the more wholehearted and fully that you embrace it, the more it's not like, he shows me pictures of different relationships where people are really together and all in love, and in relationships where things break apart. And it's not so much about whether there's no conflict or ease, there's total ease, there's conflict. It's not about that. It's just that when you're in your wholeheartedness, the relationship you enter will give you, it will be the manifestation of everything you want to learn and what your intention is, no matter what that ends up looking like.
Mm. Yeah, and I feel naturalness for all of us, if we would go back to design, it would be to live your life's work and your purpose. And you see that those are two very different energies. It's going to be different lines for all of us, and it's going to be different gene keys for all of us. So that's why it's so good to not say your personality sun, even when you're a 4-1, it juxtaposes like a fixed fate design. You are still going to have, we say in human design, it's all about that gate in the personality sun. I think it's super important to always look at the purpose, your design earth. So in order for you to see how does my naturalness in the world, you look at those places, and you see 2 different lines, you see 2 different gene keys, and some beautiful storytelling around that has to do with how does your naturalness look in the world.
And when you can receive yourself, when you can receive the truth of yourself, whether you realize, oh, I'm conditioned here, or whether, oh, this is a purity of consciousness and uncorrupted, unconditioned, doesn't matter. When you can receive yourself and the truth of where you are in each moment, that's when you can truly show up with the wholehearted purity of consciousness intention. And that's, that's when the pictures kind of go from flat to quantum. He took me from here to like everywhere. Imagine we're looking at a Merkaba flat, and then suddenly it pops up and spins and, throws other Merkabas out. So this is feeling like complete. He just flashed me the word complete. So do you have any other questions, or does this feel complete to you?
Yeah, it feels complete. And I wanted to say to everybody as well that the format, so now we have been taking a poll. We are going to go into the portals of deconditioning from, actually it's 2 months from now, in April. And maybe we'll start a little bit before, maybe we won't. There's going to be a podcast for the transit. And then inside of Unlock Your Design, we're going to weave everything: the gate, mnemonic gate, the programming partner, the gene key, Ching, the codon ring, everything you can ever imagine around every single hexagram. So if you want to be part of that, you can reach out to us. But really, to kind of, yeah, to shift a little bit the dynamic of these conversations. And I feel like many of these I would like to be able to put on when I out walking or something, put on YouTube and listen to them. But if I would have them in a podcast, and I could make it go faster or slower, it's like there is something that I love podcasts. So that's what these conversations tune into. If you want to ask questions, if you know that you have questions, there was one question we didn't get to today, like, is it different on the design side and personality side? And of course it is. For all the different archetypes, is going to be different where they are in your design, what planet, and in what side. And so what we are going to do, if you're in our member group, the Inner Circle, which is a membership that's starting now, I think it's 22 per month, then you get to ask the questions in beforehand. So even if you're in Europe and now it's like 4 a.m. or something for you, you are going to be able to ask the questions. It's also going to be the same thing with Simone and I, what we do with the profilings. If you're in a circle, you get to ask to upload your chart when we have readings. So that's a little bit more of a like an intimate way for us to do things and to include people in Australia, Europe, in other time zones. And we still probably will go live from time to time, and maybe recording at the same time. But that's, even for the quality, is what I feel is the next step for us. So I don't know if you have anything about that you want to add, or is it clear?
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up. I'm super excited because if you've been enjoying these soul conversations, you know that Bella and I started, what was it, February last year? Have we been at it a year? Because we missed 2 over the holidays, but we started this a year ago, and we've gone through the whole calendar, every transit. I think we have one that we missed over the holidays, but we're going to be starting our second round of this. And we're learning, right? It was our big experiment, and we're learning things like it would be nice for people to be able to speed up how fast they listen. A podcast might be better, and we're learning how we have to reorganize ourselves to make it work, and where we're going, and to serve everyone, and the transmission, as well as do it in a way that's loving. So yeah, if you'd like to be a part of that, we would love to be with you in the Inner Circle. But honestly, I have to say, in my heart, I am so super excited to be in community through the portals of deconditioning as we go through the whole wheel in community. Because, well, I'm a 4/6, so I love being with other people. And I can, I was an academic for my career. I can certainly read the Gene Key book on my own. I can do my own research. I can do my own contemplation, and I'm happy doing that. But I also know that I really, truly love the journey when I'm sharing it with others. And so that we're going to be doing that in a focus group, Portals of Deconditioning, walking through the wheel with our group. I'm so super excited, and I can't even begin to. I know how much that I have discovered about myself, how much conditioning I have um, become aware of, and how what those red threads are in my own life. And when I start teasing that deconditioning out, how I'm transforming. And I feel like that's because we had these ongoing conversations throughout the year, and so I'm super super excited about portals of deconditioning. And if that sounds light to you, reach out to us, and we would love to share more with you. And we will keep coming to you whichever way you join with us, whether it's through our eventually podcast, or you join Inner Circle or Portals of Deconditioning. And we love you for being with us on this journey. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm going to just disconnect from the 10 and make sure he didn't. He said, "Now that was wholehearted. He's acknowledging that I shared from my heart, my intention, and my motivation." So anyway, that was great. All right, till next time.